Welcome to What's the Truth podcast, where we dive into topics on faith and culture. We are so honored to have Ken Thomas from Connect Ministries with us today, talking about the topic of connecting with the local community. Ken, thanks for being here. We've been friends. We've worked beside each other, and I am honored to sit in this room with you to talk today. Give us a quick introduction so our listeners know who you are.
Well, thank you, Stephen. It's always good to hang out with Stephen and to be right here at Woolsey Baptist Church. Well, my name is Ken Thomas, as Stephen said, and I serve as the president of Connect Ministries, and we exist to help the church meet new people. And that's something that we've been doing for over 18 years. We first realized this struggle some years ago. Me and a co-worker named Gabe Norris were working together at Lifeway Christian Resources some many years ago, but we were both part of helping start a brand new church, Rolling Hills Community Church in Franklin, Tennessee. And in that process, we realized just how hard it is to meet new people. And that's the heartbeat of the church, right? As you begin to develop relationships with people, you got to first meet them. We realized how hard that was, and so we started Connect Ministries together some years ago. But I'm married, have a wife. We've been married 30 years, have 3 children. 2 of them are married, and 1 is still in high school. And so we are just excited about what's ahead in our family, but I've been real thankful for those 30 years that we've been married together. My wife's a pharmacist, and I've been doing ministry now for so many years and enjoy doing that, working alongside local churches.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you and Gabe have an incredible story. I love hearing the two of you talk about it, and I love hearing your passion for reaching new people. There are people all around churches right now that are not going to churches. Why is that? Why are people not going to church?
Well, that's the number one question, right? I mean, there's really no one answer, as you would imagine. There's just no one answer to that question, but it is a reality that when you look at the data, you can look in different places for data if you want to. You can look and see what Barna is telling us about where the church is headed in church membership and participation and attendance. You can see how that has drastically changed over the last 30 to 40 years, and their projections aren't as favorable as we would wish them to be. I also don't want to spend too much time looking at projections because I know we all serve a mighty God who can change those projections and is passionate about the people who are choosing not to be a part of a local church. But back to your question. Why are families choosing not to be a part of a local body of believers? Well, like I said, there's no one answer to that question. But when you look around the community, you realize how much, if you want to call it, competition there is for their time. Mm-hmm. And
I mean, that's everything, right? That's sports, that's work, that's other activities that kids and teens are going to. That's everything, right?
It's everything. It's, you start thinking there's X amount of hours in the week, and everything is pressing in on their time. And so when you start talking to unchurched people and ask them that very question, you'll hear things like, well, we've got this sporting event that we feel like our child can't miss, or we've got this other activity, or that's the only day I have that I can go visit my family. And so we try to make a Sunday a time when we spend with our family. Or, by the time we get to Sunday, I'm exhausted. Mm-hmm. And the thought of getting up and trying to be a part of a local church where I can contribute and be a part of it feels impossible to me. Mm-hmm. And the list just kind of keeps going on. And at first you may say, well, some of those things are just things they should not make a priority. Like, does my child have to participate in X, Y, and Z on Sunday? But some of the things that they're a part of, you would say if there's any other time, you'd say, well, that's actually not a bad thing. I mean, It's not a bad thing to care for your aging mom, but if that's preventing you from being a part of a local body, or there's so many different reasons why.
We believe the Bible says that being a part of a church is a healthy thing. It's a biblical thing, and we also believe that the Bible teaches that we are to go out and share the good news and
right.
invite people. I was reading in my Bible just the other day from the Gospel of Luke about this. A few years back, or several years back, you came up with this idea of Connect Ministries, of bringing the church together with people in its community. Tell me a little bit about that, and really where I want this conversation to go, Ken, is how do we connect with the unchurched? What do we do?
Yeah, well, we were so burdened by this, Stephen, some years ago, as we mentioned, 18 years ago, in fact, that we started Connect Ministries because we were burdened by this divide, if you will, two separate worlds, the church and the community, all going about what they do. Mm-hmm. Think about it. All the things that this local church has going, which is fantastic, by the way. Unbelievable ministry that's taking place here at Woolsey Baptist Church and at churches all around our country and around the world. Great ministry. And so much happening in the church, in the community, mm-hmm. right? And what we realize is that these two worlds very seldom, if ever, intersect. Mm-hmm. So what would it look like if we, and this was our question that we wrestled with some 18, 19 years ago, what would it look like if we spent the remaining days the Lord gives us here on this earth on helping these two worlds come together, mm-hmm. okay? And relationships start to form between people who aren't thinking about Christ, don't care about Christ, not interested in the local church, and going about their business, and this local church who's passionate about people and the gospel and the message of Christ that literally saved us. Mm-hmm. So how do we bring these two together? And so Connect was started with that burden that still exists in us today. Well, that burden led us to begin to talk to ministers like you, who we spend a lot of time with, and hundreds literally of ministers that we've sat down with, and church people and unchurched people, and we've collected data. We've looked at surveys, and we've just tried our very best to be an expert on understanding this dynamic. And what we wanted to know is in the churches where they're effectively meeting new people and assimilating them into their church, what are those churches doing?
Let's talk about those. I've heard you share some about these things. I think you call them ingredients, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
That's right.
So take me to the kitchen.
Yeah, well, let's head to the kitchen, and we'll talk through some of these ingredients that we've seen in churches who are effectively meeting new people. And so here, the first one that we've noticed is that churches that are effectively meeting new people, they execute a clear plan.
Okay.
Now,
tell me, what do you mean?
Yeah,
What's the plan?
let's talk about it. Okay. So,
doesn't every church have a plan?
Well, that's what I think. That is a great question, and what we've learned over these years is that the answer to that is not necessarily. For example, this happens a good bit in my work as we work with churches. You mentioned one of the things that we do is Connect Camps, which is a day camp experience that we bring to local communities, working alongside of local churches. Okay, a lot of times churches will call us and they'll say, "Hey, should we do Connect Camps or should we do X, Y, or Z?" Mm-hmm. And the first question that we'll ask is, well, it's hard to answer that question because I don't know what your strategy is. So what's your strategy? Why? What part of your strategy would this resource fit? And they say, well, our strategy is to love God and love people, or something mm-hmm. similar to that. And to which we'll say, that's a unbelievable mission, and often that's a mandate from Scripture, but that's not really a strategy. And so after answering that question so many times, we began to realize that there's a lot of confusion in local churches about what is a strategy or what is a clear plan, and how do they go about executing that.
Let's pull this back
mm-hmm.
to the individual level, because a lot of people listening today aren't in leadership, mm-hmm. like making these decisions at church level. Is a clear plan important for the mom who's raising two kids that wants to follow the Lord mm-hmm. and reach her neighbor? Is a clear plan important for the guy in high school that's hoping to reach out to his teammate?
Mm-hmm. Well, it is, and here's the reason why. If a minister at a church, a paid staff member, or even a bivocational staff member has a really clear plan for their church, but nobody in the church knows what the plan is. Do they have a plan at all? In other words, would you want to go and volunteer at a place where you don't know where they're going and you don't know what the purpose is? It'd be like showing up for a local community event. I had this happen to me one time. I showed up at a local community event to volunteer. And when I got there was nobody to greet me. Nobody told me what I needed to do. And I stayed for about 2 hours. I didn't know if I had done what they had asked me to do because nobody had told me what they needed, and I really felt like I had wasted my time. Mm-hmm. Now, if that organization would have had a clear plan, they could have helped the local volunteer, or let's call it church member. They could have helped me plug in and be a part of what they were trying to accomplish on that particular day. Mm-hmm. I'd have been much more enthusiastic about being a part of that organization moving forward than showing up not knowing what the plan is. What do you expect me to do? How do I know if what I'm doing works? How do I know if I'm making a difference at all? Is this a good use of my time? Mm-hmm. So in churches where, and it doesn't matter how big or small the church is, doesn't matter how many staff there are, in churches where there's a real clear plan, you have a higher volunteer rate because people want to be a part of something that they know what they're doing matters. Yeah. And so if they get the feeling like, I don't even know if this is a good use of my time. Now, we can argue from a biblical perspective that serving in the local church is a great use of your time. But
where are you going?
Yeah, where are you
going to get there?
Yeah, we're just spinning our wheels. And if they have contact with your church and they don't feel like what they're doing really matters, or they don't see it making a difference, it's going to be real hard to keep them engaged, especially if they're new to Christianity or to a local church.
Are you ready to stand bold in your faith? I want to tell you about a 9-week series you don't want to miss. Starting August 3rd, 2025, join us for Not Ashamed, a powerful new sermon series based on Romans 1:16. We're diving deep into the gospel and the boldness that it should give us as Christians. We have a life-changing gospel that transforms hearts. If you feel like you struggle carrying on spiritual discussions, this series is for you. Discover the call of the gospel and what it means to follow Jesus with no turning back. Visit us at Woolsey Baptist Church for our 10:45 a.m. worship service. Be ready for a transformation. Your faith will never be the same. I would imagine any college football team in the country has a game plan that they're thinking through as a coaching staff, and they're sharing it with the team, and they're working to execute it from probably the time the season ends, the previous winter, all the way up through summer and fall into the championship day.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're the same way. I mean, as people, we want to be a part of something that's really clear. And so it really was an eye-opening experience to begin to work with churches, and we created an assessment where they could take this assessment, and churches could take it and work with the local local people in their church to get their viewpoints on things, and to really begin to understand that in many cases, the average attender of a church or church member really doesn't even know what the church's plan is. Like, what are we trying to accomplish in this year? What are we trying to accomplish in the year after that and the year after that? Mm-hmm. How do I know if what I'm doing actually is helpful and is contributing to an overall plan? So we say one of the ingredients is that you have to execute a clear plan, and that involves everybody. That's not something that just a staff member needs to know. That's something that everyone needs to know, and everybody needs to know what their role is as they execute that clear plan that is developed by the church itself. Yeah.
So the burden that you have had is that the church is not connecting with the community. You've observed, you've watched, you've prayed, you've thought. And one of the ingredients is execute a clear plan. What else? What are the other ingredients?
Well, the second ingredient is to create remarkable experiences.
Help me out with that one a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. Well, this is something that the community, in fact, we went out in just our local community one day, and we started just asking random people, when you think of remarkable, what do you think of? And we probably talked to 100 people, so not enough to make a generalization across the country. But in this little town, when we started asking that question, not a single person mentioned the local church. And it reinforced something that...
So what's remarkable in your community?
Well, they started naming all kind of things. They named Target. Well, that was surprising. A lot of people mentioned Chick-fil-A, which certainly we all agree with. They mentioned other businesses. They talked about Amazon, how fast Amazon could deliver their products to their people.
But nobody said the church is remarkable.
Not a single one. We actually recorded it, too, because we wanted to make sure we had accurate record of the people's conversation. So not a single person mentioned the church, which was... It was sad, but it was kind of our hunch as well, that when people think of remarkable, and at least in that particular town, they didn't mention a single church whose very purpose is to serve those people. And so what we realized is that, but when we looked at churches that were effectively meeting new people, they were doing things in a remarkable way. Now, there is a myth whenever we share this ingredient. When churches hear, so what you're saying, create remarkable experiences. So you're expecting us to be like Disney and spend a lot of money, or you're expecting us to create a big show, and such. And the answer to that is no, that's not the point at all.
So it doesn't necessarily take a ton of money to be remarkable, and it doesn't take a lot of glitz and glamour and lights shows and all that to be remarkable. So what is remarkable?
Yeah, what does remarkable look like? Let me answer that by just sharing a story. One time I think twice in my life I've stayed out of a Ritz-Carlton. Okay. Just making that clarification here.
Okay. That's not where you're staying every night when you travel.
That's not where I'm staying when we travel. And I remember one day I had a little free time that afternoon, and I went on a little jog. Now, I don't run as fast as you. And I probably, when I walked out to go run, they probably said, we need to keep our eye on this guy. But anyway, I went out and ran. It was a pretty hot day, and I was gone, 30 minutes or so. And as I was walking, I'd finished my run, and I was walking kind of up the driveway at this hotel. A bellman met me with a towel and a cold bottle of water.
No way.
Now, listen, I didn't go tell anybody I was going off to run. Now, I had on my running clothes and I had on my headphones. But I didn't say, hey, Stephen, I'm fixed to go for a run. If you wouldn't mind, I'll give you a good tip if you bring me a cold bottle of water and a towel. But he saw me coming up this driveway, and he walked towards me and handed me a cold bottle of water and a towel. That's been over 20 years ago, and I still haven't forgotten it. How much did that cost him?
Wow.
It didn't cost you much.
Wow, that's powerful.
And so when I think about that, I think, being remarkable, I would say that's remarkable. It caused me to remark about it. And it didn't cost them very much at all, if any. Just a little bit for a bottle of water. And I was thinking about that, and I have a friend who every year on the anniversary of when my father passed away sends me a text and says, just want to let you know I'm praying for you today. That's remarkable.
That didn't cost anything.
Didn't cost anything. But you know what? I'm still talking about that. Why? Because it touched me. It makes me want to remark about it, and it didn't cost a single thing to do. And that's something everybody in the church can do. And when the church says, the church body says, not the pastors, okay, because everybody expects them to do those things. But when the church body says, I want to put into place what it means to be remarkable to our community, it makes a mark on that community that people talk about. And that is what we mean when we talk about creating remarkable experiences. It's something that all of us can do. It's a mindset that you...
No matter what church our listeners attend or what community they live in, what do you think that could practically look like in their neighborhood or at their office or even on a Sunday when they are at church? What would it look like for people to do the remarkable that the receiver or the recipient does remark about, like you're describing?
Well, it's the heart of a servant. It's the heart of it's servant leadership. modeled by Christ himself. A life verse for me has been Luke 6:31. I learned it when I was as far back as I can remember. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think it starts there. Mm-hmm. It starts right there because you think, you know what? If I just treat people the way that I want to be treated, it's going to be different than how the world is treating people these days. It's so simple but yet complex because our sinful nature wants to take over, and our sinful nature wants to look at every relationship as a way, or every person or every experience, how can I get the most out of it that will benefit me? Mm-hmm. But we can flip that and say, how can I make sure that this single mom of 2 children, has a remarkable experience when they come in contact with the church that I'm a part of? And I start seeing it through that lens, it changes how I interact with them when I see them in the community. It changes the way I interact with them at the ball field. It changes the way I interact with them if I bump into them at the grocery store, at the gas station, or wherever I come in contact with them, because I see it quite differently in that way.
That's well said.
Yeah.
That's well said.
So, it's not creating remarkable experiences. It's not, Stephen. Now, yeah, we have to do things really well as a church. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter the size budget, the size staff. When people come onto the campus, if we're able to earn their trust and they'll actually take us up on the invitation to be a part of what we're doing in our church campus, we do need to be doing that remarkable as well. But that doesn't need to be mistaken with big budgets. There's certainly some of that, but it doesn't have to be contained to that.
Well said. What else? What else are we throwing in this ingredient list?
Well, the third one we'd say is build life-giving relationships. We innately were designed for relationships, right? Go back and look in Genesis and study the very creation of the earth. We were born for relationships. And there is a longing, even in unchurched people, to belong to something.
Do you think that's even more so true today than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago?
Well, I don't know how to quantify it, but I would say, if I was just to give my opinion, I think it's certainly not gone down. It's maybe intensified with some of the isolation that's happening.
Absolutely.
In communities, I think there's something to that. There's isolation, through our social media addictions and all the things that are thrown at us now. Lack of trust, where it's like, hey, I don't know that I can go trust to be in this environment anymore, so I'm going to kind of cocoon in my own world. But
so how do we offer that
Yeah.
as Christians to other people?
Well, we have to first recognize it, that people long to belong. Think about your own community. It doesn't matter where you are listening today. Think about your community. People are wanting to belong to something, right? They're going to belong to a civic organization. They're going to belong to a local golf country club. Mm-hmm. They're going to belong to, the people are joining platforms where they can play video games against people they never meet and never will see. Yeah. The list goes on and on. What is that? Where is that coming from? And it's coming from the way that we were created. We were long to belong. And so what does the church member like myself, what can we do to help the church, if you will, cook this ingredient of building life-giving relationships? Well, we can pursue people. That's one of the things that we can all do. I remember when we were a part, as I mentioned, of starting a new church in Rolling Hills Community Church, our pastor, who's still the pastor there now, Jeff Simmons, he was fantastic at this. In fact, he actually taught, by the way that he led his life, he taught me this principle in real life. I would see someone walk in. We were meeting in a movie theater, and someone I didn't recognize, and I would watch how Jeff would go to that person, and he would just begin, not in an intimidating way, just get to know him a little bit. Mm-hmm. And in however long it took him, in just a few moments, he would find out what they enjoyed doing. Mm-hmm. And as he found out what they enjoyed doing, you look up and he was introducing them to somebody else. He may actually, this person, man, they enjoy playing golf. Before you knew it, he had introduced them to a fellow named Steve. Steve then had all of a sudden invited them to join a foursome on a Thursday. And then now that person said, well, hey, by the way, we actually are in a small group, and would you be interested in that? And hey, by the way, we're going to play golf again and it was just, that's just one example of all the different ways that I witnessed this firsthand. But we can all do that, right? It's not a church leader or minister's responsibility to help people feel like they belong. It's all of us in a church helping people feel like they belong. And when we do that, we can help build these. That's the first step of building these life-giving relationships. And so, for example, I joke when I say this, but on my way to where our offices are in our little town, I passed this. It looks like an old barn that's been repurposed into a yoga studio.
No way.
Yeah. And I go by it a couple times a day. And, I've never considered stopping to see what's going on there. I see the sign, but I don't stop. And here's the reason why. Whether it's true or false, I don't know, because I've never been there. In my mind, there's nobody in that yoga studio that's like me. Mid-50 male in there doing yoga. Why would I stop?
You think sometimes people drive by church and think, why would I stop there?
I think that's 100% correct. And they think, I think I know what goes on in that church, but I don't know. And there's probably no one in there like me, and I just don't belong there. And if they feel like they don't belong there, it's impossible for us to create and build life-giving relationships. So what do we do with that? Well, we have to go to them. We can't expect them to come to us. Now, does that happen still in today's culture? Yeah, there are times where people come to us. We know that they're going to check out the church's social media and what's going on online probably before they ever step foot in your door. But at the same time, when they do step inside the door, they've done their research in many cases, and we have to be ready to help them feel like they belong so that they don't have that same feeling like I had or like I do when I would go by the yoga place.
So well said. So well said.
That's something we can all do.
So we're going to execute a clear plan, number one. We're going to build life-giving relationships, number two. And then we're actually, that was number three. You said create the remarkable
experiences.
The remarkable experiences. That, by the way, doesn't cost much or take a ton of time.
That's right.
What else?
Well, lastly is one, as we studied churches and began to write things down, we almost said, this is just kind of a no-brainer. Like, do we need to even include this? But the more we study churches, we realize this is important. And that is this. Churches that are effectively meeting new people, they also have a deep friendship with God. They enjoy deep friendship with God. In other words, when new people do take you up on your offer and do show up and do feel like they now belong, and they benefit from these remarkable experiences, and they realize there's a plan in place, that when they begin to unpeel the onion, they see that there's a deep friendship with God that's different. And that is part of the assimilation as well. I've talked with a lot of churches over the years who they want the next, I use this word, product or strategy for assimilation. Like, what's the key? How do we we're getting visitors, but how do we assimilate? That's a wonderful question to be answering. They want it to be like, if I do 1 through 5, they will have a 90% success rate in assimilation. Well, I don't know. I've not come across what that strategy is. It may exist out there. I haven't done it. But what I do know is if there's not deep friendship with God in that church, assimilation is very difficult.
Could a synonym for deep friendship with God be something like authenticity, genuine, real
relationship with the Lord? It starts with the staff, and honestly, it does. The statistics are overwhelming at staff burnout, at a church staff burnout, and the things that they're dealing with, and so there has to be a spiritually healthy staff that is enjoying that deep friendship with God. It's not contingent; nothing rests wholly on the staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're
influencers, they're pace setters.
They're creating the opportunity for God to work through them and work through the local leaders and the local church members and the leadership teams that are in place, so that spiritual growth, discipleship is happening locally. And when those things are present, it fosters a spirit of growth and assimilation as possible, because people are looking, and stats are telling us as it points forward that there is some spiritual revival coming, and there's a lot of research on that right now if you look around. And so we just want to make sure that as a church that we are enjoying that deep friendship with God, that daily walk with the Lord.
How are you cultivating that in your own life?
In my own life,
2 or 3 ways.
Yeah, well, in my own life, am I spending time with the Lord on a daily basis?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I discipling? Who am I talking with about Christ? How am I serving in my local church? If I'm not doing those 3 things, it's really difficult to see any type of spiritual growth in my own life. And so it starts with those things. Okay, who am I investing in? Who's investing in me? Who's my mentor, and who's asking me the tough questions? All of those things are important for us as believers to see a deep friendship with God and a growing relationship with the Lord. So,
that's good.
Like I said, these 4 ingredients are things that's not for just church leaders, not just for church staff. They're for all of us, and all of us can do these things. And when churches as a whole are doing these, no matter how big or small, when churches as a whole are doing these 4 things, what we've seen is that they will see opportunity to meet more people and see them come to know the Lord and assimilate them into their local body.
Ken, we're recording this episode while Woolsey Baptist Church is hosting one of Connect Ministries, I guess you would say, Connect camps. Give us a flyby overview of what Connect Camps is and how people could learn more about it.
Sure. Well, Connect Camps is a remarkable day camp experience that comes to local communities, partnered with local churches, specifically a host church like Woolsey Baptist Church. And it's designed to help the church interface with their community. It's our hopes that there will be somewhere between 25 and 40% of the campers there not connected to a local church. Understanding that parents in every community we've studied and been to over these now 18 years, seen over 300,000 campers in those years, looked at the data pretty extensively. The parents everywhere are looking for something for their children to do every week of the summer. Why not the local church provide a remarkable experience that will help the church get to know them and build some trust with those parents so that they can earn the right to help them feel like they belong there in their community, so in their church. So that's Connect Camps in a heartbeat. It's kindergarten to 8th grade. It's a lot of fun, and man, Woolsey's been a wonderful host for multiple years. We love partnering here.
Thank you, Ken, for taking the time today to meet with us. If you like this episode of the podcast, check out the show notes for more information from Ken and Connect Ministries. We have several events here at Woolsey Baptist Church, and if you want to get involved and connect, check out woolseybaptist.org/events.